Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, I am Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Today was a bit of an outside day, but in all honesty, I have to say, oh my goodness, it sucked everything out of me. It got into its mid 30s almost today here, Celsius. I think that's pretty close to 100 Fahrenheit when it comes to the States. But it was dead air. And not only was it dead air, that moisture, the humidex, was up there, which makes it even hotter. And it was uncomfortable. I went for a bus ride. I was just trying it out. I needed a new tripod for my cameras. I'm going to a music festival in another week or so. And so I want to make sure that I have a tripod so I can take some nice, I don't know, stable film while I'm there. I'm going to see if I can put a video together, an outdoor explore for everybody, because I'm sure everybody's ready for a little bit of outdoor exploring from Cindy. It's been a while, It's because I have been delving in to the inside. And if I had that opportunity, and that's the thing, I work with what comes across my path in those opportunities, in those mishaps sometimes, invites. And this one was a little bit of an invite, but for the most part, I just invited myself. I'm volunteering for a music festival that is put in place every year to raise money for cancer. And this is the first year that I'm actually going to be able to go. I'm going in as a volunteer. I was just going to go in there and be a party girl along with my sister and brother-in-law and their friends, right? But I thought, you know what? It would be kind of nice, right? That I could stay an extra night, go in early, help with the setup of the bands and the tents and whatever else needs to be done. And I thought, I could make some film for my YouTube channel in the experience. I did a little research. I thought because they were covers, right? There are 15 bands going on stage. Um, but I thought because they're doing covers that I would be able to film them, right? Doesn't seem to be the case. They still can be claimed, the songs by the writers and producers. And so I've only had it happen once on my channel where they claim the monetization. I went to, what was it? It was a car show, and I did a video for a car show as one of my outdoor explorers. But they had DJs and stuff out there, and they were playing music, and they were such amazing vehicles. I didn't think at the time that I could just add my own music, put my own music over the music that was being played. At that time, I wasn't that great at editing. So I did the best that I could, left the music up. It got claimed. And I was really embarrassed, right? Because I've not so much as had a strike when it comes to my YouTube channel, right? Oh, Tammy, you made it in tonight. Are you going to be able to stay for any length of time tonight? Oh my goodness, you are. That's absolutely amazing. I'm talking about the one time that I got a strike on YouTube. And it wasn't really a strike because they don't consider it that way. They just make it so that the producers and the writers of the song, they can claim the monetization on it. But for me, it felt like a little bit of an X beside my name. So I just left it up for a couple of days so the people who do follow my content could watch it. And then I took it off my channel. I think I'm a little bit better in the editing. And even though I know now that even though that it is a cover, right? Because that other music wasn't the cover. They were the original artists. So I just assumed they were going to put a claim against my content, which they did. But I thought I was good because they were covers, because somebody else was singing them, that the artists or anything couldn't claim them. But it's not just the artists who get a little bit of these royalties, it's also the writers and the productions, right? So I won't be able to put up any of their music unless they do originals, and I'll have little chats with the different bands that are playing and see if they're doing any originals. My brother-in-law will let me know. He knows all the band members and stuff. And if not, then I'll just do clips, right? And just show the party because it's a good time. And it's a pig roast, you guys. I know lots of people don't eat pork. I love pork. I think it has to be, besides turkey, it's probably one of my favorites is pork. I think it's such a clean meat. It's all white. There's no veins and tendons and yucky stuff in it. So it I tend to like the pork, and it'll be with all the fixings and stuff. It'll be lots of fun, and I'll make sure that I got good video, and we'll have a little bit of an outdoor explore, right? And hopefully that will tie us over until I can get out on the road again. But, right, I explore the inside and the outside. And I'm very grateful that I made that decision in sharing the inside, because it was a process that I was working on for myself. If you guys have been hanging out with me for any length of time, I've come from a very dynamic upbringing. In that upbringing, it caused me a lot of issues. I didn't think, right? I knew I was a bigger set girl, right? But I didn't think that I had problems. That was something in the past. But that's what everybody thinks, because they leave their past in the past, and they don't recognize that the problems that they have when they carry them into their adulthoods, they're dragged from the past. And I had lots of things that I had to sort out. I had no idea that I was an empath. I had no idea that I was a codependent. Had no idea that my mother was a narcissistic borderline, right? And I didn't really understand the impact of emotional, mental, right, and physical issues that arise and actually compound in a way that we carry problems throughout our entire life and don't recognize what those problems are or how they impact our our life, how they impact our relationships, the impact the way we socialize with each other, our idiosyncrasies that we tend to have, that we build mass over ourselves because we can recognize that other people don't act this way or live this way or react this way, but we do, right? And so we cover that up like we don't have any problems. And like I said, I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until well into my 50s, right? I thought I had my poop together. But come to recognize, one of the biggest issues in having these addictive personalities and these traits that I had were directly connected with my experiences as a child and as a teenager. And it was a way for me to escape it was also a way for me to be around a lot of people because I was a gambler. I was around a lot of people in bars and nightclubs and casinos, lots of people. But that relationship that I had was with the machine. I actually, if anybody came up to talk to me or anything, I would consider it rude. I would consider it I'm doing my thing, right? I would feel like it was an interruption and it would agitate me because, right, I didn't want to be social, right? That machine is what I was focused on, right? And, that was only one aspect that I'm sharing here, but, that came directly in my social anxieties that I picked up along the way, which is really, really strange, right? Because I was always a very social person. I worked bars and nightclubs and I had lots of friends. But being a codependent, it was one of those masks, right? In making sure everybody's entertained, that everybody is comfortable, everybody has what they need. And because people were getting these things from me, they wanted to be around me. And in wanting to be around me, it made me feel better about myself because I was somebody who didn't feel good about myself, right? If you've hung out with me for any length of time, by the time I was 27 years old, I had made it up to 311 pounds, right? Uh, I'm grateful that I was able to get some control on my weight. I'm still right. I'm comfortable at the weight that I am now. I'm grateful. I'm no longer obese. I'm grateful for my good health, considering that heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, a lot of these diseases that are actually associated with with obesity. And obesity did run in my family, but it's not a genetic thing. Lots of people say, "Oh, it's in my genes." No, it's epigenetics. Yes, it's passed down from one generation to the next, but it's caused by our emotionality, right? It's caused by trauma and being brought up in dynamic households. And that stuff is just passed down from one generation to the next. And I had a grandmother on my dad's side who was over 500 pounds. On my mother's side, I had two uncles. One was over 600 pounds, the other one was 500 pounds, like big boys. And because it was in the family, they said, "Oh, it's just in the genes," right? And of course, my parents tried to control that to the best of their ability, right? It was a little bit of a seesaw, up and down, roller coaster, up and down, on a diet, off a diet. And it all depended on the household income because, dieting is expensive, right? And that's the truth. If you want to eat healthy, it costs a little bit more. That's why there's so much obesity in North America, is because it's so inexpensive to eat that way. And yes, it becomes an addiction, right? Because we're eating through our emotions. And as we gain weight, we delve deeper into our emotions and it becomes really difficult to keep the weight off. It's in our choices and in our determination. And I'm not quite there yet, right? I'm not quite there yet. I keep a handle so I'm not 300 pounds anymore, but I'm not at the point where I'm going to give up a pink ice donuts with sprinkles, right? And That's the truth. And these are the kind of things that we bring into our adulthood. We ruin our sexuality. That was a big one in my family because my mother had her own experiences in her life, and because in her fear she drilled it into us, and because they had four girls, right? My dad was always chasing away the dirty old men. Always, right? And it was not paid attention to. I didn't even know what that P word was until maybe in my 30s or 40s. But these people were around us girls all the time. My sister got nabbed. I had an experience. I had a couple of experiences, but that one experience that I remember that I told my dad about, and I just went to my friend's house to play, and I had an experience, and I told my dad, and my dad got the whole apartment complex together, whole bunch of men with baseball bats and all kinds of things, going down the street to this guy's house, dragging me in front of them, right? It was super traumatic experience because I had no idea what was going on, right? And it was something like out of Transylvania, right? Where they're all with the pitchforks and everything. And it was something that I think they were nervous about because they really laid a job on the kids, right? And they also used, my weight and my uncle's weight as an example for my sisters. So now my sisters are in their adulthoods and they have emotional issues when it comes to keeping the weight off or keeping the weight on. So it's just some of those things, in me not being able, when my marriage fell apart, I took it as a betrayal. And right off the hop, I could not keep a job. And I used to keep my jobs for like 10, 15 years, right? Unless we had to move, I kept the same job. But then after my marriage fell apart, that joy for life kind of dissipated out of me for a long time. I still had fun, but my heart was not in it, right? And I couldn't hold jobs anymore. I worked for a job for 6 months. Somebody ticked me off, and I just wouldn't want to be there. I'm just like, that's it, right? I'm out of here. Get another job. And it was just one job after another to the point where I had done so many different jobs that I was no longer in the same um, career because I was in hospitality. And, I started taking work in lumber yards and in retail. And oh my goodness, working as cooks. And I have worked as cooks before, but in the very beginning of my career, for the most part, I was a server or waitress or supervisor in restaurants and bars and, doing banquets. And it was really hard for me to hold a job, but I didn't recognize that came from trauma. And that was only a trigger. That was something that was laid back somewheres back there, right? But it was only in the failure of my marriage that it actually came to the surface again. And these are triggers, right? Somebody yell at me, and lots of times I would burst into tears. And it would be embarrassing for me as an adult to burst into tears. I haven't cried for a long time, right? Well, I'm not going to say for a long time because I recently lost my cat. I shed a few tears over my cat. But those moments where I would get triggered and out of that fear and agitation, I would burst into tears and it would be so embarrassing. And I could tell it was embarrassing for the people in front of me yelling at me or giving me heck or whatever they were doing that triggered it, right? That it impacted me in a way. And I'm grateful, that I don't get triggered like that anymore. But if I hadn't picked up and worked on and started to understand how the past affected the present, which could have led into the future, right? If I hadn't happened onto those lessons and those understandings and actually delved into them, who's to say where I would be right now? Who's to say what state my life would have been if I had even would have woken up to any of these ideas at all? And that would have been a tragedy in itself because, the whole idea is, those other parts of me, those parts that come back, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, that they don't get stuck. Epigenetically, these things are passed down from one generation to the next. That that my nieces and nephews and my great nieces, they'll all have a better opportunity to do a little bit better by themselves and a little bit better by their families. You guys know that I believe a lot of what's going on in this world is just this stage of evolution that we're in, right? And of course, the fittest, right? When they say this, the fittest, it's the fittest that does go forward, right? It's those ones that have those good health, right? They are physically well, that they're mentally well, that they're emotionally well, that they're able, that if something were to happen, whether it was by Mother Nature or whether it was by our own doing, would we know how to start a fire and build shelter? Would we be able to come together as a community to, right, start villages and cities again? I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. I'm not, right? But it is in that preparedness because, this world has had 6 episodes of extinction where we could have disappeared in a moment, but somehow we came together, right? And repopulated this world and got another chance. But look what we're doing to this world now. And so I think that because, right, we better understand, right? We're not Neanderthals anymore. We understand. Hello, Eugene. I see you there, dear. We better understand. So now is the perfect opportunity because we're triggering our own next stage of evolution, right? We're triggering it ourselves. And it's the digital age, this age of AI learning, right? Our brains have expanded so much in the past few generations that it can't help but be done, right? Like I said, we're not cavemen anymore. And it was a slow process because, well, we were teaching ourselves, we were teaching each other, we were learning from our environment. But now we're learning from our phones and our computers and our laptops, and so it's moving fast. It's not going to take hundreds of thousands of years to move forward, and maybe we'll physically look the same because the process is moving so fast, but mentally, right? And emotionally, that's going to be a different story because we better understand. And the idea is to show up and be the evidence and the example for each other, to hold each other up, to make sure people understand what's going on. And right, not in a preachy kind of way, right? But in a way, in our interesting conversations and interactions, and in those, those moments that we have when we're stewing over possibilities, and right, and what is it? Conspiracy theories that make our brains go all haywire in all different directions, that possibly, right, we can make the process a little bit easier for each other, right? Be that example, be that evidence in those things that we learn along the way, in just sharing them. And who picks them up, right? Whoever chooses to pick them up, right? And maybe nothing will come of it. But maybe if something does happen because somebody did sit in on a conversation, right? That somebody did find something interesting in that topic that was brought up, or that little bit of information, or that idea. Oh, maybe it is evolution, or gee, I'm not saying that we should all become survivalists and move out into the bush, and no, right? We are social beings as humans, and we're community, right? Wherever you live, you have your community, right? And it's not, all for one and one for all, right? Because in the end, you're the priority. You're going to take care of yourself, and you can't drag people kicking and screaming, right? It's that story, the Pluto's cave. It's that idea, right? Eventually, we're going to have to make decisions for ourselves and move along, right? And how do we handle that emotionally and mentally, in leaving the people we care about behind, or choosing who gets that spot on that Noah's Ark, or that ship that's heading off to Mars, or that subway that's going deep into the earth, right? Just ideas, right? Because there will be choices that will be needed to be made when these moments come. Who's to say this digital age just might go, right? And it will be gone. And if it's gone in an instant, it's a possibility. I'm not saying that it is, but it's a possibility. Can you imagine what kind of an uproar that is going to make, right? I think it's important to be able to leave something behind. And, in my generation and growing up in the 60s and 70s, we had photographs. I still have a drawer of photographs that I keep. This is all that I have left out of my photographs. I had a flood in my apartment. Well, the whole floor flooded, but it came into my apartment, and I had all my photo albums on the bottom shelf in my closet, and the water got them. But I saved as many as I could, and then what did I do? I digitally took photographs of every single one of these photographs, and I uploaded them to my Google Photos. So I have them physically and I have them digitally. But it was quite possible that I would have ruined all of these, right? And what if something happened in this age of AI learning, and we didn't have any photographs? Do you think that the kids today are taking cameras and taking photographs and going to Walmart and having them digitally printed? No, they're not. It's all being uploaded to the cloud, right? All of it is. And, I would like to see a lot more of those old photographs, whether they're landscapes or families or military or different countries. Like, I would love to see that all digitally uploaded. Like the libraries, they keep archives, right? They digitally uploaded like all the newspapers from going all the way back, right? That it's up there. But who's to say what is going to be left behind from us, right? If something were to happen. I believe it's so important to take advantage of the fact that we have, right? We have our phones. We have digital cameras that we can film ourselves like a diary. I do it all the time. I keep saying I'm going to do another one. I haven't done one in a very long time. And maybe that's my own signal. Maybe that's something that I need to do. Maybe tomorrow or the next day. Maybe Saturday, where I take Saturday off. Seeing I got the tripod, I can set up the tripod, maybe go to the park and just have a good couple of hours of conversations with Google. I mean, there's a lot that I discuss here. I try to be genuine, I try to be open, I try to do that sharing out there. But there's lots that is very personal. Not saying it's not pertinent, it is pertinent. It would help people out greatly, I'm sure. But is this the platform to be having those conversations? I don't know in this moment, right? I don't think so. Maybe somewheres down the road it might be a little bit more relevant, a little bit more important that I do. But I think these are conversations that you have with people on a personal basis when you're sitting having a coffee or you're in private interviews or private conversations, right? That these topics are more, I don't know, more easier to have, right? Because they are private. They're quite often uh, very personal, right? And again, very harmful if maybe somebody else got that information and decided to use it as ammo, right? You know, uh, I'm very kind of careful that way because there are people that I care about very much that are hanging out with me in my content, or they're people that I appreciate because they have contributed in my understandings and in what I bring to the table, that throughout my life, often, if somebody couldn't get at me, they would go after the people that I cared about. And it still happens. It's very recently it happened where somebody couldn't get to me. My own fault. I said something. I let somebody know that it would hurt me desperately if something happened to this person, and they were, oh, right? And we're just gonna send some good cheer, make sure they get to their destination, that it's a false alarm. They could just turn around and go back to the station. If you guys don't know, I live behind a fire station, so this is something that happens all the time. And Tammy and me are always sending out good cheer when we hear the fire alarms, right? But back to that idea, and I don't know, maybe you guys have been an experiencer in that, where, because we learn to be tough. We learn as taking on those roles quite often that we'll take on that pain and that responsibility just so somebody else doesn't have to suffer. But, when we do that, people recognize they can't get at us, that they're not going to bother us, that they can do what they want, and it's right, it's not going to make any impact at all. But once they recognize that, right, they look for other ways to get at you. And one of those ways is to go at other people that are in your life that you care about. Lots of times, what they'll do is they'll stretch the truth or tell outright lies and stir that pot so the people who care about you look at you differently, right? Because we don't always get along with everybody in our group. Sometimes we get along with this person, but this person has got friends, right? And you might not appreciate their friends, but you appreciate this one, right? So lots of times in jealousy and resentment, sometimes, that they'll try to separate, right? Try and put that wedge or that stick in between you so that that relationship isn't on solid footing. So lots of times, right, in order not to draw other people in to an uncomfortable story, you leave them out of the story, right? And that can be unfortunate because lots of people, right, have contributed to the person that I am, right? I even actually made a list, right, of people. And there's a lot of people. But, if they can't get at me, would they go after them? I don't know. But I'm not willing to take that chance, right? I'm not willing to take that chance because I care for these people. These people have gone out of their way to help me. And maybe they know they help me. Maybe they don't know how they've helped me, how they've contributed to the person that I am now. Contributed so much that I can be that voice for other people, right? To be able to divvy it out a little bit in a way and not have it shoot back to the messenger, right? It's that idea, don't shoot the messenger. Okay, let me come into the comments here. Photographs are the things that mean the most to me. I cherish photographs and treasure them. They are priceless to me. Absolutely amazing. You know, it's even in those wedding photographs, that they're all online digitally, and not too many of them are in a physical form anymore. And they think that, they're indestructible, that they're online, they're there for whenever you want to. I remember it wasn't too long ago when my niece, and she was big on photographs. She's uh, uh, um, she works in social media also, but she does Instagram. She's a bit of an it girl, so she does the functions like the football games and the concerts. And then when she goes to fancy restaurants, she takes photographs of their food and stuff, right? That they're eating, and she's really good at what she does, right? But she lost her phone. She didn't lose her phone, but she lost her phone because it just died on her. She didn't know what went wrong, and it wouldn't work. She couldn't get any of her photographs. She couldn't get into any of her platforms, and she had to start from ground one. And she'd been taking photographs, since she was really young, ever since she was able to get on the phone. And you know how, young these kids are when they start getting on their own phones. And, she was like an adult when this happened. And so it was like her whole life was just kind of wiped out. Now, she was lucky in a little bit of a way because she did share her posts, and lots of times I would save her photographs, right? So I was able to send her a lot of those old photographs, a lot of those family pictures that I took, right? But all those things, all those trips that she did, all her friends, her school friends and everything, a lot of those photographs, they're gone. It was only what she could collect off of everybody else, right? And so that's just an example of what could happen. I'm not telling everybody to go off to Walmart and have your photographs, but right, you can go to Walmart and you can have all your photographs that are on your phone or up in the cloud, whether you use Google or one of the other platforms, and then just take some physical photos, right? And put them in a photo album. Because, if there was something in this building, if those fire trucks were coming to this building to put out a fire, and I had to leave my apartment really fast, I can guarantee you this little binder with these photographs, these just few photographs that I have left, would be one of the first things that I take, right? Of course, my laptop too, right? Would be this probably the second thing. So I just continue on doing my lives because it is in the consistency, right? That I keep showing up, that I keep growing in the process because I'm sharing the process, right? That's the idea. But it is in that little bit preparedness, right? It's like having this escape route for if there's something going on, like a fire burst in your house, you have to have that little escape route, that plan, as to make sure that the whole family gets out of the house safe. I hope everybody does have one of those. In my family we always had one. When you go to school, they have one in the school, don't they? That's why they have the fire alarm tests and stuff, right? um, oh, thank you for sending the good cheer to the fire trucks, Tammy. Nice to see you in here tonight. I sure appreciate that you were able to pop in. So you have a day off today, or is this the end of this session of caregiving that you're doing? Yeah, let me know. Uh, I understand, Cindy. I've been there, unfortunately, a few times, and it was very bad all those times. Yeah, it's tough, Um, we take care of each other. That's the idea. We all have groups and families and networks, our friends, right? That these people that if something were to happen, you're going to try and regroup together. But when you regroup, does everybody have something that they can contribute, right? Like I said, the blacksmith, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? That everybody is a part of that village. And even though probably if something happened, maybe the money, right, would be absolutely useless, right? Maybe we'll be getting by with trading the jewelry so we can get on the raft to get across the river, right? What is the form of exchange in being able to get things done, right? Will it be being able to bake the bread, right? To harvest the wheat, to grow a garden, right? To be able to put horseshoes on the horses, right? That everybody has something that they're good at, which is really important, right? To be good at something, right? It makes yourself valuable in a way, right? That you're not going to be left behind, right? I worked and finished that one caregiving job, Cindy. I should be able to be here now again. Oh, if you have other things, and even if you want to do things for yourself, Tammy, right? Don't feel bad that you're not here. I was just making an inquiry as to right whether that job was done or not because it was a nice surprise to see that you came into the live tonight. I appreciate that. But I don't know where that conversation was leading us tonight. Um, it was started with the weather, how hot it is outside. Oh my goodness, we're going to be super, super hot tomorrow. I'm getting some sun, right? But for the most part, it is kind of shutting me down. I want to sit in front of my air conditioner and stay comfortable. I have another birthday. I have another sister who's got a birthday this week. I don't know what we're going to do because one of my sisters is working. But maybe we'll go out for breakfast or something. And oh, it did go well. I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that it did. Right? That's absolutely amazing. And that's beautiful that you offered to do that too. This is you time when you're coming to sit with me. I appreciate that, Tammy. That makes me feel good that you like hanging out with me in these lives and these podcasts that I do. And I enjoy. I like having the company myself. I mean, if nobody showed up, and it happens on the occasion, right, that I'm in here by myself, it's not going to slow me down in any way. I'm just going to come in and do my thing because, like I said, it isn't that consistency that we get better. I'll let her know, Tammy, that you said happy birthday. Yeah, she'll appreciate that. She can't move around a lot. She's got a broken foot right now. But I think what I'll do is I'll go over and I'll clean her house. And I think maybe I'll pick up the ingredients tomorrow and make her a birthday cake. She likes strawberry shortcake. It's her favorite on her birthday, so I'll make her a little strawberry shortcake for herself or depending on what we're going to do for her birthday, right? Give her a little bit of a visit. And yeah, all my sisters' birthdays are in the summertime. Mine's in the fall, but all my sisters are in the summertime. I administered altogether 114 prescribed medications to that young man, Cindy. Wow. Isn't that something, Tammy? Right? We have to be grateful. I'm going to send him some good cheer too. Maybe we can get that number of prescribed medications down a little bit. Wow. Right? Be grateful where we're at in the moment, right? It's difficult for right everybody out there. Everybody has a handicap. Everybody is struggling with something emotionally, mentally, right? Physically, financially, right? Socially, right? Because we do suffer socially too. And I guess that's where we started in this conversation. I was a little bit all over the board tonight, but you know what? It's it is what it is, right? We'll just say the heat got to Cindy tonight. But it was nice to get out. And it was really funny because I got this tripod today. There were three of them in the store. They were all the same price. All of them were the same price. And one of them was super cheap. You could probably pick it up for the dollar store, right? It was that cheap. Cheap quality. It was a cheap brand. And then I saw this one, and of course, I Google lensed all of them and took certain things. This one was the heaviest. So that's why I had to Google lens them. There was another one that looked like it was pretty good quality that would work very well, and it was very lightweight. But when I Google lensed it, it was only worth $40, right? It wasn't a very expensive one. And when I Google lensed this one, I found this one, somebody was selling it for $400 online. For the most part, people were selling them for 150, $175. So I thought, oh my goodness, you're just going to go with the quality. They're all the same price. I got this for $8. $8. And so I brought it home. I checked it all out. It works perfectly. It's in really good shape. It has a strap for my shoulder. And yes, when I put it in my backpack, it's going to have a little bit extra weight to it. But I think for the most part, when I take this one out, right, it'll be in my backpack. It'll be a short distance, or it'll be in a vehicle, right? And I'll be able to just pull it out of my gear when I need it. So I dismiss the fact that it was super heavy, right? God forbid I should take it with me on one of my big long hikes. But when I go on my hikes, I usually use my monopod, and I've had that monopod for over a decade, and it's one of my favorite pieces of equipment, and I have attachments on it, and I could just put my phone on it and right just carry it with me. It's almost like a selfie stick, when it's got nice foamy handles and everything with it, and extends really far. So if I wanted to put it up in the trees, or if I wanted to put it way up in the high in the air and then put it over a river or a beautiful landscape, that I'm not going to be interfering with the sound and stuff, right? So yeah, or the visuals of it. Okay, I'm starting to trail off. Gonna blame it on the heat. The heat got to me today. Let's get into a card, you guys. Um, I've still got my budget for next month that I've got to do tonight before I go to bed. It's I have to stay on top of things a little bit. If I don't, then I'm going to overspend my budget, which is very much so reason for the budget. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. I just go off and do whatever I needed to do, right? Actually, when getting my tripod today, which I desperately needed because I am going to that music festival um, next week, and I needed a new tripod for sure. And because I sold some cologne, men's cologne, a bottle of men's cologne, this paid for the tripod. And I was able to get a couple of groceries on top of that. I needed garbage bags. So I picked up some garbage bags, and I got my tripod. And that cologne that I sold only cost me $3.99. So I think that's a fair trade, right? If you don't know, I'm a bit of a reseller too. It's what's been putting the roof over my head, right? Okay, allowing me to stay in the studies too, right? So I'm pretty appreciative of that too, and that little bit of reselling that I'm doing, right? Being my own boss, but again, it's not a regular paycheck every 2 weeks, so you got to take that into consideration too. Reason for budgeting. Okay, you guys, here we go. Grab a card if you haven't hung out with me before. This is my own deck. There are 54 powerful words. Sometimes the word I pull is relevant to the conversation. Sometimes we just going off in a different direction. So the word we have tonight, a little bit in the conversation that we were having tonight, in being able to pick up, right? Learning is the process that prepares us for the future. What will we be talking about tonight? And just in that preparedness, right? And just not even just in the preparedness, I have to say, it's in what we learn, and being able to pass that information, that experience off to somebody else, being the example for somebody else, being the evidence for somebody else that it can be done, right? Because lots of times we don't do things because we don't think that we're capable, right? But if you see somebody, right, that like me, who was at one point totally clueless into some of these ideas, some of these understandings that, oh, if I had had them 20, 30 years ago, let's go back 40 years ago, what would my life looked at, look like, right? What kind of work could I have done for myself that these limiting beliefs that I had, maybe even some of these addictions that I found myself in, because it was my way of coping with something I didn't even recognize that I was coping, right? Right? Addictions. Yeah, I knew what addictions were, but I didn't know addictions were actually only a symptom, right? They weren't the real problem. They were what I was dealing, how I was dealing, how I was coping with those things that messed me up in the past, right? And so, in being able, right, it's never too late. And maybe as being the example and the evidence for somebody else, it's that idea that they think that they're too old, it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late. I'm chasing down my dreams and my goals. I'm learning to adapt and conquer and ride the waves, right? And I'm learning not to be triggered in things that I understand is somebody else's problem and not my problem. I'm not taking those things personally. Whereas there was a time not too long ago, right? I would have carried that guilt and shame. I would have done those acrobatic tricks to take care of somebody else because they felt that I had wronged them in some way. But that wasn't the case. It was just something that they knew they could do, and the result of how I would feel guilt and shame would benefit them in a way, right? And, I really did a job of myself. I really did. But at the same time, in that process of learning, it's preparing me for the future. And that learning that I did in the past 6 years, right, prepared me for this moment where possibly I could be that example for somebody else that it can be done, that it's never too late, right? To take care of yourself, right? To be that example for your kids, to give you that moment to maybe recognize where you messed up, that maybe you could say, I'm sorry to somebody else. I recognize my contribution in that story because it really does take two to dance. It really does, right? We hear one side, but we never usually take a moment to listen to the other side, right? And that's part of the lessons. That's part of taking care of yourself. That's the part that will help you to get out of those coping mechanisms, right? To get you out of those limiting beliefs, to give it a moment to understand that you're not done yet, right? I'm creating the best life for myself as I possibly can. In all honesty, yeah, it was difficult, right? I didn't want to take responsibility for a lot of what went on with other people, where I felt I was wronged, right? But to be able to put myself in other people's shoes and recognize that hurt people really do hurt people. And that's the truth, right? And then not be able to be triggered by that and still be able to go about my day in what I want to do, in what I want to accomplish, and to actually be able to accomplish that and even be the example for somebody else that that can be done. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. And I'm not stopping, right? Right? I don't think anybody can actually stop. Epigenetically, it's been going on for a very long time. Sometimes you gotta make a mess to clean a mess, and that's the truth. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. You have a great night too. I'm glad you made it in tonight, Tammy, too. It was really nice that you popped into the live today. I am going to wash my face, take my big danglies out, and I'm going to get my pajamas and I'm going to see what's going on with the world. Maybe make myself a fresh cup of coffee, take my vitamins, and crawl off to bed. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.